Okay, well, welcome everybody to this panel discussion. We're really glad that you joined. This is about how disruptive technology will transform the agri-food industry, and we're on the precipice of some major changes. In fact, they're happening already, and the COVID-19 crisis only accelerated the change. So you're going to see a lot of changes. My name is George Bailey. I'm the executive director of the Digital Supply Chain Institute, and you're going to meet some fabulous panelists today. They're from all over the world. They have incredible expertise in this business, and they come from different perspectives. And it's all about how do you take a supply chain and move it to the next generation, and what technology do you need, what business models do you need, and I'll tell you something else. The COVID crisis, this complete disaster for everyone, has nonetheless been a real push for companies to move ahead and move more quickly than they probably ever moved before. And I want to start out with a question. The first question we have here is, how has the COVID-19 crisis impacted the agri-food business? And I'm going to ask Seema to answer that question. What do you give us some perspective on the industry and how you see things going?
So a few things came out. Despite the massive disruption COVID caused, a few things got accelerated, which I would say are making us look at ag tech even more. And I'm sure we'll have a deeper discussion on technology, but as investors, recognize that 5 years ago, nobody was really talking about ag tech. At least we weren't. We were talking about agriculture, but in the traditional sense. What COVID has done is, one, in the context of India, as a case study, sent migrant workers back home. And these are people who were flocking the cities are now being forced to go back home. Most of these are young, digitally literate people. And they're saying, okay, so what do we do now that we're back home? Because back in the day, as a person affectionately put it, it's not my words, I'm quoting, that only the people who could not get anything else in the city would stay back in the village. And now all these people are flocking back. So the silver lining is a digitally literate population is returning back home. And that is what is making them sit up and say, how do we now employ technology to the best of our abilities and advantage? And that has really accelerated the adoption of ag tech solutions. And to me, that is a silver lining, because when you have this low level of farm holding where you really cannot deploy any serious consolidated technology in a meaningful manner, adopting these data digital trans-driven models becomes great. So I am cautiously optimistic, and my optimism is backed by the fact that we are making active investments in ag tech. So while there is pain, I think the fundamentals are forcing us to adopt technology that we were kind of kicking the can on. Now the imperatives are in our face, and I see that as a positive.
I agree. I agree completely with your comments, especially the idea that now people know you have to make technology investments in order to make progress. It's really clear. Any of our other panelists want to comment on this overall issue of the agri-food industry and how COVID-19 is shaking things up?
Yes, sure. Let me do a quick point. I think that the major crisis came when we have to move to remote. So not only in the agri-food industry, in all industry, we have to move to remote working. And when you think about agri-food, how can you be prepared to this? No, because you have to go to the fields, you have to check the crops. It's a really difficult situation. And from the point of view of us as a technology provider, we have been that the industry have been aware of problem. They start to try to get more digital to front this kind of problem. But the crisis of COVID is increasing this, and now people is realizing that we need technology and we need a way to report and assessing the data remotely. And I think this is one of the main problem of the COVID, that we have to go to remote. And we have seen this with one of our clients, Fidesterra, that they are using satellite image to feed in our system in the blockchain ecosystem, and to empower the farmers about their crops, and to make sure that they do sustainable practice, and they can do preventive actions with the crops. And this is one of the major, I will say, of the major change in the digitalization of the agri-food industry.
How should organizations change to adapt technology, and what's your perspective on what people should be doing to harness the power of this technology and deploy it in a way that makes sense and creates advantage for the consumer and for the company?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, George. Actually, I was just looking at earlier point on satellite analytics as well. So I do have an advanced analytics team under me. We are, of course, looking at working on drone analytics and satellite analytics. We are using it for our plantations, which are managed largely as well. So coming back to your question as well. So for us as Olam, 3 years back, we clearly defined that digital is one of our 4 key objectives within the organization, right? So and of course, it's great to see what I lead, but also what really motivates me is actually these solutions that has been that is on the ground, really empowering small holding farmers, for example, how it brings value. And as an organization as well, we are very much focused on sustainability as well. So it's not just, for example, some of the solutions that allows smallholding farmers to do direct procurement, direct purchase and things, but it brings a lot of transparency. It brings a lot of value to these farmers, and also it's reduces a lot of intermediaries as well. So for us, if I really look at technology, we have let's say in upstream plantations, we have these drone analytics and satellite analytics and things. If I look at the next wave where it's more supply chain related, we have a couple of solutions there. And also on the, we also have solution like ETSOS, which really focus, it's basically a sustainability platform that captures each and every touch point that we have. So basically measuring the socio-economic, prospects of farmers. How can we really not only collect the data, but how can we develop farmers through a farmer development plan, for example, that really goes back to the community. That has been, and if I look at the solution, so we have around 500,000 farmer data, that's been collected and collected in the sense which we have a direct interaction with the farmers, but these collected information, we use it for their own development as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's super. I have a question just for anyone on the panel now. If you're looking forward, what do you think? Where are there risks in the supply chain? Mark, and maybe you want to talk about it. But where do you see risks? I mean, there's risks from several perspectives. As an investor, you have risk. As a farmer, you have risk. As a distributor, you have risk. I mean,
I think it's one of the questions. I think there are 3 things to it, really, in my mind, and interesting to see what the others think. I think, of course, COVID, its origins, because of the origins, well, we think it came from a Chinese wet market. I think biosecurity is going to again become even more and more important, and we are already seeing it in our crops. To be able to, and using Europe as an example, to be able to import into Europe the minimum residual levels of pesticides and use of on-farm chemicals is becoming increasingly stringent. So that's impacting routes to market. I think also, of course, the COVID is going to bring recession and resultant reductions in income. That will impact local as well as international, I think, food production systems. So these trade flows, and toilet paper might be one of them. Are they going to permanently change, or how is that going to impact countries? And I think especially, I read the FAO predicted that it's going to especially impact the poor. The COVID is going to push about 100 million people into poverty, they're quoting. So I think that's, to Shanoj's point, supporting smallholders and making them more productive, ensuring traceability, and also reducing the friction that they experience in terms of accessing markets. I think that's going to be key to managing those risks to food security.
And I was going to, in my comments, kind of flip the risk into opportunity. So talk about, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So we are eternal optimists, as you can tell. The way we see it is that there is an interesting confluence of the pull factors and what we call the push factors in driving opportunity in this space, and that I think is driving a lot of investor interest also. So the pull factors typically are, what's pulling for this dependable, high quality supply, and I'll get into that. But the push factors are also the consumers wanting serious insight now into where is their food coming from, and so it's driven by the consumer. So the way we look at it, the opportunities are divided in our understanding, from our vantage point, are 4 big buckets, if you will, as we categorize investment opportunity analysis. So one is clearly traceability. We want to ensure, so traceability is big, and that's driven by ultimately the consumer saying, I want to verify the journey of the product, and I want to know that my food is fresh. And so if you can have innovation that can minimize food waste, provide data on when the product was, for example, harvested, things like that, information that is critical in that traceability. The second bucket that we look at is optimizing food supply chain. A few of us have spoken about it. We are actually, the one company that we should be announcing soon is actively in optimizing the input side from the seed manufacturer, the seed, the fertilizer, pesticides, all the way to the farmer. And then there's, of course, the output side, which is farm to fork. But, unfortunately, less than 10% of the ultimate retail price is realized by the farmer. And so anything that helps the farmer to essentially have more predictability in demand and also price can help their quantities and qualities. So that's our second bucket. The third bucket is crop insurance, where we are communicating the loads, whether it's the geo waypoints, anything that feeds into the dependability and providing that insurance. The last one is fintech or transactions, as we see it, helping farmers sell their commodities and lower their transaction costs, because as I just pointed out, there's a huge amount of leakage between the farm to fork. So we are seeing opportunities in each of these, call it buckets or call it verticals. And that's where we see these opportunities as a way to address the risks that Mark just spoke of.
That's a very thorough answer, and I think a good coverage of the risk issue. But I got to ask Noslen something here, because I've had some experience, working actually with Finboot in the blockchain space. Do you see blockchain as part of the solution stack in any of these issues, any of the risk issues, like traceability that we've talked about? Is blockchain part of the solution? Is that part of how we should change our supply chains, or do we need another solution? So Noslen, what do you think?
Absolutely, George. I think we have a lot of solutions. We have a lot of digital technologies available now that people are possible to access. But I think blockchain is key in this ecosystem, because you need trust. And when we talk about trust and when we talk about share and a secure way to share information, blockchain came up. So I think blockchain technology is key now. Because it's important to connect all the stakeholders in the supply chain. And when we talk about agriculture, we are going from a really small farmer with a low digitalization, but we finish in the really big enterprises with a lot of technology and interactions where you need trust and you need to share your data. And we have seen from our perspective that there is a lot of information that is not recorded accordingly, and there is a lot of information that we don't have because we don't know how to share and how to use it. And in here, I think that technologies as blockchain, they are key in this change to digitalization.
Yeah, I agree with you, and boy, we have seen a lot of companies realize how important going digital is, given what's happened over the past 6 months. And in fact, I would argue that the companies that were further along on their digital journey, who had incorporated a solution stack that had more elements digitally handled, were further ahead. They were further ahead, and they were able to survive better or perform better based on where you were in the so-called food chain. So I think going digital is important. Traceability is essential. Blockchain is an important element of a solution stack that could be done.